It was a very weak night in financial markets last night with a couple of quite big events. Firstly, we had US existing home sales data for July, and the figures came in very weak with the level of home sales the lowest in a decade. The concern in the States is that we're really starting to see some weakness in the housing market now that some of the policies that have been in place to support the market post the global financial crisis are starting to fade out of the picture. And tonight we could get more of the same because last night's data was existing home sales. Tonight we get figures for new home sales and we're expecting them to be fairly weak. The other significant event that happened overnight was that Ireland got its credit rating cut, and this is very bad news for that economy. The outlook is negative for Ireland from Standard & Poor's, and this is causing a little bit of turbulence in financial markets this morning. With that negative US data and the Standard & Poor's rating downgrade for Ireland, it was no surprise to see that investor risk appetite was pretty weak overnight. We've seen share markets weak in the States and in Europe, and we've seen currencies weak as well. The New Zealand dollar's slipped. We're holding above that mark of resistance at 70 cents against the US dollar at the moment, but we've certainly come down a cent or two from levels we're at earlier in August. We have risen a little bit against the Australian dollar. That's been hit a little bit harder than the New Zealand dollar overnight, but the big move has been the Japanese yen. In this sort of environment where risk appetite is so low, the Japanese yen's been strengthening, and the New Zealand dollar's dipped below the 60 yen mark, so we're quite weak on that cross rate at the moment. The news on the commodity front is a little bit mixed. Gold prices rose overnight. That's probably just reflecting some risk aversion, and some investors prefer to move to the precious metal when they're very concerned about other assets. But oil, which is a better indicator of global growth, prices they're dipped on these growth concerns, and there's also speculation that an oil inventory report due out tomorrow is going to show inventory levels in the States are very high. For New Zealand producers, one thing that's interesting at the moment is global grain prices. We've heard some stories about grain prices spiking higher on concerns about the Russian drought. I prefer to look at the US market, which is the world's biggest corn exporter, and prices there fell overnight. The reports are circulating that it should be a pretty reasonable season for production in the States, and that's caused prices to ease back a little bit from their recent highs.